Glad to have you back. The Buhari administration, since coming to power in 2015, has been working hard to diversify Nigeria's economy and shift from a monoproduct economy.
Now, shortly after the president assumed office, the country was hit with a recession that almost crippled the economy, but it forced government to think out of the box in growing the non-oil sector.
Well, the federal government, in partnership with the CBN and the Agric Ministry, birthed in 2015 the Anchor Borrower Scheme, aimed towards ensuring mass rice production. Now, this sparked a revolution that will see Nigeria, one of the world's largest importer of rice, become self-sufficient in rice production.
But these achievements are now allegedly being threatened by the activities of neighboring Benin Republic and Cameroon, as well as other countries around. Government has accused both countries of making policies to undermine Nigeria's rice revolution. Information Minister Lai Mohammed says Cameroon and Benin Republic lowered tariff on rice to 0% and 5% respectively to encourage importation and smuggling of the product into Nigeria.
All right, we have in the studio with us an agricultural expert, African farmer Mogaji. Good morning to you and thank you for
Good
joining
morning.
us.
Good morning. Nice to see you, African farmer.
Same here. Good morning.
Thank you.
All right, first off, let's talk about the rice revolution, how the Anchor Borrower Scheme is making rice farmers in the country millionaires.
Well, the Anchor Borrower Scheme is a scheme I recommend and I subscribe to. But the making of millionaires, yes, some are making millions, but in the long term, will they remain millionaires? Okay. That's the question. I'm always about sustainability, and I'm a futurist. So right now, because you don't have so many people involved, in another 1 year, virtually every Nigerian will practically be producing rice. Well, most people will be looking at that value chain. And so the people making the money now will not make the money then because economics of scale will come in. So right now, yes, it's okay, but we need to sustain those people in the sector now. So,
all right. Talking about this Anchor Borrower Scheme, how effective is the scheme from what you have been assessing?
Anchor Borrower is effective from the CBN's arm, but not that effective from the banks. The CBN must disburse funds through banks, and most of the banks last minute just draw back. So you have the farmers meeting their demands of having BVN, of having equity contribution, but last minute you have the banks just pull out. Hey, it's too risky. A chunk of the Nigerian banks don't have the required staffs with experience to handle any agricultural business in the capacity that we have. So you have quite a lot of PhDs there without relevant field experience. So the challenge is once they do the risk assessment and around here they hold the officer responsible for the funds and not the corporate bank. So the officers just declined. So we are having the challenge, the bottleneck now with the financial institutions.
So if we are having these challenges now, how verifiable is it then, the statement from the Minister of Information that millions of Nigerians have been brought out of poverty through the Anchor Borrower Scheme, meaning that many of them have benefited from it, millions of them?
That statement is not accurate. From a field perspective. Many, but I'm not sure you would be able to count 500,000, talk less of millions. The main challenge is, these facts are verifiable. If you go to CBN, they'll give you the data of how much is available and how much has been dispensed. So that would let you have an idea of what is available. So bottom line is that the money is available. CBN is willing, because I have this data, CBN is willing, but the financial institutions are the primary bottlenecks now. And until we have those, excuse me, and until we fix that, the monies will still lie down in CBN. So I think we need more microfinance. They need to involve more microfinance. and make it a bit flexible for the microfinance to access these funds, because most of the microfinance, especially microfinance in the suburbs, in agric locations like in Lagos now, they probably should just restrict no anchor borrower funds for Lagos microfinance. You know, because you are not directly involved. You probably lend to a client who will take it to another state. You know, but the microfinance operating in those rural communities should have access and some flexibilities around it. But the initiative in itself, you know, using the commercial banks, is because they have branches, which would have been a good one. But now it's become a bottleneck and a frustration to policy, to that policy, to CBN, to the farmers, and to the presidency.
I know the government, sorry, apologies, has been looking at agency banking, kind of. So instead of using just commercial banks, you know, branchless agents who are not have not been employed by the banks, but are fronting for commercial banks so that they get closer to these people and they are using them for data. An official of a government says that there is an option that they've been using and is making them get closer to provide credit for some local farmers. Yeah,
they're providing some credit. But you see, CBN, the bank must apply that they want the facility for an anchor who has maybe 5,000, 10,000 farmers, and your bank statement and a couple of other things is required to access those funds. So those agents can't do that.
So you still need the banks?
You still need the banks. But if they now take it a bit lower to microfinance, it will be effective, very effective.
All right, let's talk about the issue of sufficiency in rice. The government has said it many times, not once. In fact, they've said it through the Minister of Agriculture, they've said it through the Minister of Information. Nigeria is now self-sufficient in rice. In fact, we've threatened the economy of Thailand at the time.
In fact, 60% of rice eaten in Nigeria today
is produced in the country. And we've heard the ambassador of Thailand at the time come to say no. The statement credited to the Minister, or to the Minister of Agriculture at the time, although it wasn't correct, when they said that Thailand was complaining that Nigeria was no longer importing rice from. But you are on the field. Talk to us about how sufficient, when it comes to the issue of sufficiency in rice production, how overboard is Nigeria standing?
We're not close to being sufficient. We have increased significantly rice production. We are not able to sustain the increment yet, but we are not meeting any significant portion. Why? If we are doing even 50%, producing 50% of what is required, we will feel it in the markets. The price of foreign rice will drop by an average of 50%. The price of rice has not dropped. You know, because what that means is that when you are producing what we need, okay, what that means is that what is coming will not...
There will be demand for it.
Yeah. And there will be gluts.
Because there's excess supply of everything.
And the warehouses, many of these importers have erected massive warehouses and they've stocked it up with rice. So because they are business people, capitalists, they will sell off at control price so that they can make their margins and move on. So they are not selling, and we're not having the price drop by 50%. So where is the rice? Is it that our silos are being filled? And to the best of my knowledge, I've moved around, our silos are practically empty. You know, so we don't have rice in them. So if we're having excess production now by some quarters claims, then what that means is that they should be telling us that our silos now are full of Nigerian rice. Okay. That is when we can believe that statement. But when we don't have our silos filled with Nigerian rice, then where is the rice? Are we now exporting? And our neighbors that we can export to have increased their importation by 30%, like Benin Republic, over 100% between 2015 and 2017. They are importing more
rice.
And so where you need to go to the border stations, yeah, this is TVC, do this investigation, you will find youths taking 8 bags. There was a time I counted 50 because I have projects in 2 border countries. 50 on Okada, 8 bags, 50 of them moving by road. So governments should not be blaming our neighbors for opening their borders to making more income because their officials are working. Government is paying customs. So if custom is not doing the job, they should clamp down on custom and not blaming the neighbors.
Okay, yeah. The Minister of Information said that, in fact, the importation of rice from Thailand fell from 644,131 metric tons in September 2015 to just about 20,000 metric tons last year, September. But then, this you can verify as well. If you go to areas around the borders and you check public buses very early in the morning carrying passengers, just stop and search them. You see them stashing bags of rice in every small hole in their buses, and that is what they do on a daily basis. So how do you say that rice crashed to about this amount when it's so easy for you to just go to any border and you see traders offloading rice, bags of rice from public buses?
Is right with that data that the rice importation through Nigeria has dropped significantly?
To that figure?
That is accurate data, okay? So it's giving us the right data there. But what it's not saying is that the importation around Cameroon, Benin, and our neighbors has gone almost double. So the thing is, they stopped coming through Nigeria, and Benin Republic that need more money allow these things to come through. So it's customs.
Without tariff, 0%.
Customs has been the issue under additional. Customs frustrated that man also. Government needs to do something about customs. With the tomato, there's a tomato policy also that has been in place since last year. It has not been affected courtesy customs. Is the customs bigger than the federal government, than the presidency? How come, instead of, calling a spade, if rice is coming into Nigeria and it cannot come through the land borders officially and through the ports officially, and it's coming in, if it's a private sector organization, you SACCO is in charge, and the management team. It's generally said in management that you don't discard a winning team. So if your team in custom is not winning, discard them. It's more challenging, and this is more serious. If they can't protect rice, how can they protect weapons from coming in? These things are moved in big trucks and co. So
because
anyone,
like you said, anyone who goes around that environment where these things, you stand there, you just see them.
You see them.
You just see them coming in. Nobody asks any question. Nobody is stopping anyone. They just come in as if it's a regular, normal business.
And that's why there's an allegation, which we don't know how true it is, that sometimes some customs officials even demand for some sort of sorting, because they are stopped and searched.
Go through the border. Just go. It's a free passage. It's when they want to package these things, when they want to show anything on media, the people who don't sort are likely to be the ones we see on air. But guess what? This thing is, you go through those farms, they have many routes. In a particular location, even the smugglers fix the road. These are visible things I know. I pass there virtually fortnightly. They fix the road to allow movement of vehicle. When smugglers are fixing roads, then it's official. But when they now have issues with each other, sometime last year there was this face-off where they shot each other, and they clamped down after 2 weeks. Business as usual. Everybody's making money along that value chain of smuggling.
Now we have various notable areas where rice is being produced, like the Lagos KB rice, the lake rice, the Ebonyi rice is there.
Ogun State too?
Ogun State, Olam rice in Nasarawa State, Benue State, and even Edo State. They have their different schemes. Now, how is government taking advantage of all of these? Because they can't really rely on subsistence farming from the individual farmers here and there. How is government collaborating with this known
you know, I mentioned sustainability. That's a major area where government is not performing. It's always this fire brigade short plan. According to PwC, Pricewaterhouse report on improving rice by mechanization, Nigeria has about 22,000 tractors. China has 1 million. India has 2.5 million. So one, we cannot produce enough because the equipment is not just there. Two, when these people are producing now, yeah, there are challenges with the Lagos-Kebbi program. You know, it's heavily subsidized from my point of view, but it's good. It's good. Lagos is a responsible government. It's good because they are still encouraging local. After some time, but it's not sustainable, but after some time, we should find a way of bridging that gap. But the fact is that they are still creating a market for locally produced rice. Now, if we have more state governments coming to grow other types of rice, like white rice, Benin Republic and co, they consume white rice.
Yes.
White rice will be grinded into ground rice. I used to consume that. I loved that when I was growing up. So we need to, that value chain of different rice for different markets, we need to step into that. So we need to encourage that diversification of varieties. We need to encourage more seeds locally produced than imported. Bulk of the seeds are imported. If the seeds are imported, it's not sustainable. So Thailand can move from importing rice to importing seeds.
Wow.
You know, so we need to just plan long term. And the, you know, the current food security team, I don't know what we're doing with old men. You know,
no, they have experience.
You can't use government to solve government problems. You need more private sector to drive private sector programs and just government to support. So, okay, most of the people on the platform are government staffs. They will implement through government structure. And in agriculture, you can't really monitor anything because it's mostly manual. So there's a lot of loopholes. So you bring in the private sector to drive it. They brought Dangote to drive cement and other players, and we are independent. You need private sector. Bring senior citizens, mid-age, and the next generation. Combine the three together, and we would have a good team solving food security.
When they talk about, excuse me, when they talk about issues of employment, it is the private sector that really does the employment.
Yeah.
Because when government does it, it's like just taking people off the streets and then keeping them somewhere and giving them money. The concept of adding value, the concept of adding value is not always not there, because sometimes a lot of them are not doing anything because government employed them.
BOI, CBN, they need to engage in a lot of CSR now, corporate social responsibility now. And it should not be business. The countries that have evolved across the value chain of agriculture invest in corporate social responsibility. They're supposed to get small cottage mills to all these rice producing states, such that you can have and form cooperative. 5 of them come from a cooperative and begin to process the rice, begin to sell the paddy, that's the back of rice, for feed mill. You need to create that value chain, and it should not be profit. Or it can be profit, but a long term. We call it impact investment. You have impact investors who give you maybe 5% for 8 years. It's just that they don't want to dash you the money for accountability. But bottom line is that we need CBN to come in with this, because the bottlenecks of banks, you may not be able to erase that immediately. But when you get these youths there, things can get done. These things are simple, but unfortunately, around Nigeria, it's very complex.
It's very complex.
All right, so if all this are done, it's possible, really? You think that it's possible for Nigeria to reach its goal of being self-sufficient when it comes to rice production by 2020?
It's possible.
Just 2 years away, anyway.
You see, as far as I'm concerned, with the Nigerian brain and the Nigerian mindset, and we've been very resilient, nothing is impossible for us. The experts to do this job are in the country. The youths are willing. Once we have that political will, and the private sector is opened up to the opportunities, and they see the political will, we work miracles in Nigeria.
You talk about political will, meaning that if they continue this way, it's not possible?
It's not. It's not, because
the enabling environment is what you're talking about. Yeah?
Enabling environment, equipment is what we need. Not necessarily all the things they're paying attention to. So we need political will to say, okay, political will means that they should clamp down on customs. That's political will. Once you don't clamp down on customs, and the last administration had customs issue with rice. This administration is having customs issue with rice. Something is wrong somewhere. Custom is too strong for the presidency, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay.
And farmers are paying for it.
All right. African Farmer Mogaji, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right.